All righty. Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. I am Roy. Thank you for being here, and let's get right into this. First of all, good evening. Welcome to Life After 55 Health, Wealth, and Headlines. I am your host, Roy, and tonight we're kicking things off with a headline you probably didn't see coming. This is going to be about how a pesky backyard weed actually inspired the invention of Velcro and why it's a secret weapon for your metabolism. Now, before we get into it, let me just give you this disclaimer, and I'm going to put this up on the screen so we can all follow along. Okay. And okay. So let's get rid of that. Let's get me back over there. Um, and again, thank you for being here. Welcome, welcome. Now, again, what we are going to talk about tonight is what it's a weed basically, but it's called burdock root. Okay, and I'm sure just about everybody here, if not everybody here, has met burdock at least once or twice in your lifetime, even if you don't know that you did. If you've ever gone for a walk in the woods, a field with tall grass or anything like that, and you've come back with those sticky little green burrs stuck to your pants or your socks, the little ones that are impossible to pull off or nearly impossible to pull off. That is burdock. Okay. In fact, a Swiss engineer way back in the 40s looked at those burrs under a microscope and believe it or not, that is actually how Velcro was invented. Today, we are looking at the part underground, meaning the root. In many cultures, especially in Japan, where it is called gobo, it is not a weed or it's not considered a weed. It is a staple vegetable like a carrot or a potato, which is how they treat it. They cut it up and they use it in stir fries and all that, and they fry it up. Um, but we're going to talk more about how it helps with weight management. Now, we talked about weight management a few 3 or 4 episodes back, probably around January, um, because, it's the new year, everybody's joining a gym and all that, and we talked about, weight control, weight loss, and personally, I've noticed my clothes are getting very, 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 very tight, and, I need to do something, so, like I've told you in the past, I've started doing a little bit of walking, not as much as I'd like to, not as much as I should be, but I have started doing some. But I started researching this burdock root, and this is also something that could help, and with weight loss or weight management, I guess I should say. So, to me, I'm all about natural remedies. Like I've said in the past, if you've seen any of my other videos, you know that I'm kind of anti big pharma, and I do understand and realize there are some conditions where you absolutely need big pharma, you need medication. I get that. But I'm talking about like people that, have, a medicine cabinet just filled with prescription drugs. I think a lot of that is I think it's I think there's a lot of over prescribing that goes on in this country in the medical field. And I think part of that is that the doctors are kind of induced into, writing prescriptions for people for things that they don't necessarily need. In other words, there are other remedies you could try first. And if those don't work, well, then yeah, go for the medical or the prescription thing, the chemical thing, alternative. But anyways, I am kind of all more natural than anything as far as, prescriptions go or any kind of remedy to fix anything. that's wrong with you. And again, this is just my experience, my research and everything. And for those of you who don't know, maybe this is your first time here or whatever, I do have COPD, and I don't treat it with anything. I do use an inhaler from time to time, but other than that, I use Mullen and a number of other things that are natural. So that is how I am dealing with that. But that's not what we're here to talk about. Again, we're here to talk about burdock root. So and with metabolism and weight management. So why are people our age talking about it for weight loss? Because there are people, and again, this is how I discovered it. I overheard somebody talking about this a week or so ago, and I was like, I'm gonna look into that because my belt's getting a little. I'm gonna have to, put in another notch on the belt or get a bigger belt pretty soon or whatever, and I don't want to do that. So, anyways, it is not a miracle fat melter. I mean, let's be real, those do not exist. Instead, burdock works like a support system for your metabolism. First of all, it's loaded with something called inulin. And what that is it's a prebiotic fiber. And it's not the kind of fiber that just makes you go. It's the kind that sits in your stomach and it makes you feel full. So, I know nowadays the big thing is Ozempic and everything. This to me is the natural alternative to that. And for those of us who do struggle with grazing or evening snacking, burdock helps signal your brain that you are already full and you're satisfied and you're not hungry. Second, it is a natural diuretic. As we get older, we tend to hold onto a bit more water weight or deal with inflammation and puffiness. Now, burdock helps the kidneys flush out excess salt and water. And lastly, there's some fascinating science, even Healthline notes this, suggesting that it helps regulate blood sugar. And when our blood sugar is stable, our bodies are less likely to store fat and more likely to use it for energy. It's about keeping the engine running smoothly. So, you might be wondering, do I have to dig this up in my backyard? Well, first of all, please do not do that. And in fact, there's another weed out there that is similar to that. And I don't have the name of it off the top of my head. I read about it and I meant to put that in my notes, but I forgot. So I guess I need something for my memory. But anyways, I did forget. Um, and so don't go around, foraging around for it because you can get it at other places. And the one that looks similar to it is highly toxic. So that's why I'm saying please do not go out and dig up the ones you see in your yard or nothing, unless you're absolutely 1,000,000,000% positive that you are digging up burdock and not something the other plant that again I don't know the name of it, but I do know it's highly toxic. Um, you definitely don't want that. You want the clean stuff. You can find it in three main ways. First of all, the fresh root. And again, like I was saying earlier, the Japanese take this and they fry it, they chop it up, they clean it, they chop it up, and they fry it. They use it in stir fries and all kinds of things that they make. So if you wanted to go that route and cook and use it to cook in your food and stuff, you can find this at pretty much any Asian grocery store or a specialty market. It looks like a really long, thin, dirty carrot. All right. And what you do again, you scrub it, you slice it up, and throw it in a stir fry. It's crunchy and it has kind of an earthy taste to it. Then we have burdock tea. This is probably the easiest way to start. You can buy excuse me, you can buy dried root tea bags at places like Whole Foods or online. You may even be able to find it like at Trader Joe's or places like that. But it tastes a bit like toasted nuts or kind of wood. Um, it's got like an earthy, woody flavor. It's very grounding. Or if, pardon me, if you are not into the taste, You can get capsules or you can get tinctures, and you can find those at pretty much any health food store or through GoodRx, or again, you can order those like through Walmart has them online, Amazon has them online and all that. And I'm not shilling for Amazon or Walmart. I believe me, I get nothing from either one of them. Um, but I do know you can get them from there. All right. Now, if and when you do get it, how much should you take? So let's talk about safety. Um, because it's very effective, we have to be smart with it. And according to drugs.com, if you are doing the tea, the standard is usually about 6 grams of dried root per day, which is about 2 or 3 cups of tea a day. So do the math. If you're doing 6 grams of it a day in 2 or 3 cups, that would be 2 or 3 grams per cup. Three if you're doing two, and two if you're doing three. If you are doing the capsules, it's usually 1 to 2 grams taken 3 times a day. But, and this is a big but, we have to talk about interactions. Blood thinners. If you are currently on aspirin, warfarin, or Plavix, Burdock can make your blood even thinner, and we do not want that. If you have diabetes, if you're already taking metformin or insulin, Burdock might drop your blood sugar too low. And if you have allergies, like if you have bad allergies to daisies, chrysanthemums, or chrysanthemums or ragweed, you might be allergic to burdock also, because burdock is in the same family with those, by the way, with daisies and chrysanthemums or ragweed. Always, always, always chat with your doctor or medical professional before adding this, specifically this, to your daily pill organizer. This stuff is very powerful, okay? So make sure you talk to your doctor or your medical professional before you take any of this or go out and buy any of it or whatever, to make sure it's safe for you. Especially, like I said, if you're on blood thinners already, or you have diabetes or anything like that, or you have allergies to daisies or chrysanthemums, please, please check with your medical professional first. All right. So before I wrap this up, a little pro tip. Burdock is also famous for blood purifying and skin health. So if you start taking it for weight, do not be surprised if your skin starts looking a little clearer or a little more radiant. It's a nice little side effect. Now, as another little side note, I just want you to know I am going to start. I don't have any right now, but I am going to search for it as of tomorrow, and I am going to get some. And again, this is going to help me, or hopefully help me, on my weight loss journey, which I am going to officially start right here and now, which is March 31st at 7:14 p.m. Eastern time. And my goal is to lose at least 30 pounds before the end of May. Hopefully, I mean, that's a lot, but May, June. I mean, I'll be happy if I lose 10 or 20 pounds by the end of May, but my goal is 30, and that may be unrealistic, but we'll see. And anybody that wants to, join in on this online virtually, we can trade victories and losses, online if you want, via email or whatever. You can email me. I'll put the email address up at the end of the show. And everything will be held in confidentiality. I'm not going to go out telling anybody, you weigh this or that, whatever. No, that's not my thing. But anyways, I wanted it to be known publicly that I am going to start working on my own weight, and anybody that wants to is welcome to join me. And hopefully a couple of you might, and we can all get healthy together. Who knows? That's the ultimate goal here. Anyways, my advice is to start small. Maybe try like 1 cup of tea in the afternoon instead of a snack. See how your body feels and reacts to that. I mean, it's all about finding small and natural ways to support the hard work that we're already doing to stay healthy. Now, if anybody has any questions or has anyone, used this before, I'd love to hear your thoughts or your comments. And you can email those to me, in the comments below. Um, or, like I said, you can email it. Okay. Now, hold on 1 minute here. All right. Um, let's go back to where I was. So, oh, and by the way, I meant to show you that is what the burdock plant looks like. Okay. Um, and again, there's another plant, and I don't know it off the top of my head, but there is another plant that looks very, very similar to this. And if you get the wrong one is highly toxic. So that's why I said don't go out foraging for it. Um, buy it as a supplement, buy it in the root itself in the Asian grocery stores or wherever you can find it, and or the tea or whatever, the tincture, the capsules. That way you got the right stuff. Okay. Okay. Now let's get back to where was I? Ah. Um. All right. So now we've talked about how burdock helps flush out the toxins in your system, but there's another kind of inflammation we need to talk about tonight, and that's the kind that hits your bank account. Welcome to the wealth segment of Life After 55. Tonight, we are going to be talking about a stealth tax that catches thousands of retirees off guard every single year. It's called IRMAA, and if you aren't careful, it can turn your standard Medicare Part B premium into a massive monthly bill. So if you're approaching 65 or if you are already on Medicare, listen very closely because knowing these numbers can literally save you hundreds of dollars every single month, which equates to big savings every year. That's what I'm trying to do is help everybody with health and with wealth, staying, keeping as much money in your pocket as you can. Especially in these days now with what's going on all over the place. Like today I went out, I drove by the gas station. It's like $4 a gallon over here and that's high. And I can only imagine what it's like in California or places like that where it's naturally higher than it is here usually. But I was like, man. So we need to try and keep as much money in our pockets as we can. So that's why I am doing this right here. Okay. Most people think that Medicare Part B has one set price. For 2026, that standard premium is like I think it's 202.90 per month. But here's the catch. Medicare is means tested. Okay. Uh, if the government decides you made too much money, they tack on a surcharge. And a lot of people don't know that. The biggest trap is the 2-year look back. So, in other words, your 2026 premiums are actually based on your 2024 tax returns. So, a house you might have sold or a big IRA withdrawal that you took 2 years ago could be haunting your checkbook today. Now, according to Kiplinger, this is a cliff. If you go just $1 over the limit, you're going to pay the full surcharge for the entire year. Now, to me, that's crazy. And so this is why I'm telling you, these are important numbers to know. The 2026 income thresholds, um, these are the actual brackets, and you might want to pull out a pen for this part or check the CMS fact sheet. And what that is, the CMS is the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services is what that stands for. But they have a fact sheet that you can check. The safe zone, if you file as an individual and your 2024 income was 109,000 or less, or 218,000 if you're a couple, you stay at that base rate of 202.90. Okay? The first jump, if you're even $1 over that, say your income was 109,001, your monthly bill is going to jump from that 202.90 to 284.10. That's an extra $80 per month. And I'm going to just show you a little chart that I made just to show you what I'm talking about here. Okay. And as you can see, that's almost $80 a month, or it's nearly $1,000 a year extra. And that's just for crossing the line by a single dollar, which to me is crazy. And there's a high tier as well. For those people who are at the top end, in other words, if you were an individual and you made over 500K, or you were a couple that made over 750K, your Part B premium isn't 200, it's 689.90 per month. And that's per person. For a couple, that is over $16,000 a year just for Part B. Okay. So how do we avoid the surcharges? There are two main ways that I want to talk about here. First off is the life-changing event, or the SSA-44. If your income dropped because you retired, you got divorced, or you lost a spouse, you don't have to accept the 2-year-old data. You can file Form SSA-44 to tell Social Security, hey, I don't make that money anymore, and they can lower your premium. And the other way is what anybody would refer to as a strategic withdrawal. This is where wealth planning comes in very handy. If you are close to a bracket, consider taking money from a Roth IRA instead of a traditional IRA, because a Roth withdrawal doesn't count toward your IRMAA income or your IRMAA income. And also look into qualified charitable distributions, or QCDs, if you're over 70 and a half. That lets you give to your charity directly from your IRA without that money ever showing up on your income radar. Okay. So hopefully, you guys will keep that, hopefully keep that in, you can pause the video or whatever as you watch it and jot down those numbers so don't go over those, because you're gonna get screwed financially, if you do. Okay. Okay. Now, what else did I have up my sleeve here? Okay. Bottom line is Medicare shouldn't be a surprise bill. By watching your Maggie, what I call Maggie, some guys say Maggie, I say Maggie, which is your modified adjusted gross income. It keeps you in control. Um, and you want to be in control and watch all this, you do, because who's going to watch it if you don't? And the government isn't going to give you a break financially if they don't have to. They're just not. It's not going to happen. You know that, and I know that. I mean, I do bookkeeping, I do people's taxes, I do business taxes and stuff, and I'm always trying to tell people ways to save money on their taxes, legally. I mean, yes, we all have to pay taxes. I get that, and I'm not against paying taxes by any stretch. I'm just, I'm just against people that don't know, or they don't bother to learn about. And I shouldn't say I'm against. It's just I try to educate people and tell them, listen, there's a lot out there that you can use for your benefit that'll keep your income lower so you don't have to pay as much taxes. And I'm talking, again, legal things. I'm not talking about, illegal stuff. You're hiding money here or assets there. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about legally, saving money on your taxes. For example, with a business, somebody who's a sole proprietor, he or she goes to be an LLC, and then you're still getting taxed pretty high. If you take that and go into an S corp, now you're getting taxed as the corporation is getting taxed and you're getting taxed, which lowers your tax. your individual tax because you're not paying self-employment tax anymore. Just little things like that. So again, you want to keep in control, watch, Medicare. If you're on a fixed income and you don't have anything but that, you're screwed. You can't afford to pay more than you can't even afford to pay the 202.90. I've seen plenty of people like that, let alone anything more than that, another 80 bucks a month on top of that if you're over the 109. So again, just what I'm saying, and remember, they're going 2 years back too from your income, so this year is 2026. They're going back to 2024, looking at your income from that year, and that's what they are basing your Part B premium on. And next year it'll be, 2027, and they will be basing it on your 2025 income, and so on and so forth down the line. All right. So let me take a quick break here for a minute. I'm just going to turn my thing off because I am going to get a drink real quick, and I shall be right back. Bear with me. Okay. I am back. Hopefully, this microphone is on. As you can see, I didn't have time to shave this week. Sorry. I apologize for that. Okay. Let's see what else we got. All right. We're going to move into the headlines now. So we're zipping right along tonight. These are some of the stories you might have, these are normally stories you might have missed this week, but this week there's not really any stories that I have. I thought I would do something a little bit different. And what I did this week is I kind of did some like historical stuff. So far we've talked about health. We've talked about wealth, and remember, with the health part, we talked about the Burdock root and how I'm going to start using that to start trying to help me lose weight. Along with exercise, don't get me wrong, I still got to walk and do all that. We talked about wealth with your Part B premiums and how you can get shafted if you go $1 over the income threshold, and ways to combat that if possible. And now we are going to talk into the headline segments, which tonight is really, um, we're looking kind of at the headlines of history, I guess we could put it that way. So I have put together 5 time warps. And these are events that most people usually think happened centuries apart. I thought this was interesting, so that's why I'm sharing it here with you. Um, Again, these are things that most people, me included, think happened centuries apart, but they actually happened at the same time, which kind of blew me away when I like researched this. Okay. Um, and this is going to change the way you look at the world. I think it did for me. It's just going to change your outlook a little bit on how you look at history and things that went down in history. So let's start and get into our history countdown. Fact number 1: Oxford University versus the Aztec Empire. So let's talk about old world versus ancient civilizations. What do you think was here first? Do you think Aztecs were here first, or do you think like universities were here first? If I ask people that, let me see if there's even anybody in here. No, there's nobody in here. So um, I can ask this. Um, yeah, the wait a second. When I was reading this and researching this, like I said, this kind of blew me out of the water. I would have guessed, and I'm guessing that most people would guess, the Aztecs were here first. Okay. And most of us, I think, assume that the Aztec Empire was an ancient prehistoric society that was long gone before modern universities showed up. But get this, it is actually the other way around. Oxford University has been teaching students since Does anybody know? Without Googling it, try and guess. Oxford has been teaching students since 1096. That's nearly 1,000 years ago. Meanwhile, the Aztec Empire did not even form until 1428. It's pretty wild, isn't it? I thought it was. That means Oxford was already a 332-year-old legacy institution with centuries of alumni before the Aztecs even founded their capital. When we think of the Aztecs as ancient, remember, Oxford was already old by the time they even got here. That was number one. I thought, again, I have 5 of these altogether, so that was number one. There's 4 left, and I thought that was pretty amazing to me. Okay, so let's move on to fact 2. Woolly mammoths and the Egyptian pyramids is what this one concerns. This is the one that stops a lot of people cold. Most of us associate woolly mammoths with cavemen and the Ice Age, but they were much hardier than we give them credit for. The Egyptians built the Great Pyramids of Giza between 2667 and 2648 BC. But a small colony of woolly mammoths actually survived on Wrangel Island until 1650 BC. Think about that. While one of the 7 wonders of the world was standing tall in the desert, 13,000-pound Ice Age creatures were still walking around the earth in Russia. They weren't just fossils. They were contemporaries in any way you look at it. Okay. So that was fact number 2. Let's move on to fact number 3. This one concerns McDonald's, which we're all familiar with, and Albert Einstein, which I'm assuming we are also all familiar with. So let's move this closer to home with this one. I think we all tend to put Albert Einstein in the era of black and white chalkboards and early 20th century physics. We think of McDonald's as the symbol of modern 1950s suburban America, but Einstein, the man who gave us E equals MC squared and the theory of general relativity, was actually alive when Americans were already pulling up to McDonald's to order large fries. See, now that one took me. I was like, no way, man, because I did. And again, all of these that I'm relaying here, I thought, no way. I thought, Einstein was long gone before McDonald's got here. Not true. Einstein passed away in 55, which is the same year that Ray Kroc opened his first franchised McDonald's in Illinois. The era of the genius and the era of the golden arches overlapped perfectly. Now, how do you like that? Okay, fact number 4. This one concerns, of all things, the Titanic, which I know we're all familiar with that, and the first Oreo cookie, which again, I'm pretty certain all of us are familiar with Oreo cookies. 1912 was a massive year for history, but for 2 very different reasons. Most of us know it as the year of the Titanic tragedy. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, that happened on tax day. It was April 15th or April 14th of 1912 when the Titanic went down. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. I somehow or other equate that in my mind with tax day. Maybe that's just because I'm a nutty bookkeeper or whatever. I don't know. Anyways, It is a somber historical milestone for all intents and purposes, but that exact same year, 1912, Nabisco introduced the Oreo cookie. Now that's to me was a strange mental image, because while that historic disaster was unfolding in the North Atlantic, somebody somewhere was sitting at a kitchen table, more than likely out west, because on the East Coast that happened at night, late at night. So people on the East Coast were probably not up eating Oreos, and maybe somebody was, but I would think it would be more probable somebody in the Midwest or in the West was sitting at a kitchen table dunking a brand new Oreo in milk for the very first time. One of those events changed the maritime world forever, and the other changed the snack aisle in your grocery store forever. Okay. Now, last but not least, fact number 5. The Brooklyn Bridge and the Battle of Little Bighorn. This one, this is the one that really took me by surprise. It did. So, let's take a look at the two Americas of 1876. In New York City, you had the height of industrial ambition. Engineers were deep into the construction of the Brooklyn Bridge, a marvel of steel and stone. But little did I suspect, and I doubt you do or did, uh, at that exact same moment, out on the American frontier, the Battle of the Little Bighorn was taking place. So, while New York City was building toward the sky, Native American tribes were defeating, and I'd like to expand on that and say they were not just defeating General Custer, they were slaughtering General Custer in the dirt. It's hard to believe that those two versions of America existed in the same calendar year, but they did. And like I said, that one blew me away. I was like, "No way, man." You know? I always thought, when you think of Custer, you think of this, they're wearing the same uniforms pretty much that they wore in the Civil War. So I equate that with the Civil War, and I never really realized that the Brooklyn Bridge was built at the same time, just never thought that. I just thought bridges like in New York and pretty much most of New York was all pretty modern, compared to, it just wasn't built in those days. But I guess it was. Okay, so it just goes to show you history is not just a series of chapters. It's all happening at once. There's a lot of interrelated things that we don't even think about. But that's the show for tonight. Okay. I've covered the metabolic power of burdock root. And again, I am going to be using that for myself to start losing. I told you my goal was to lose 30 pounds by the end of May, if not the end of May, the end of June. I've got to start losing weight. And you are more than welcome if you are on that same treadmill, so to speak, that I am. Actually, I'm not on a treadmill. I should be on a treadmill, but I'm not. Um, but if you are on that, diet thing, or you want to, and diets, I don't get me started on diets. The diet industry is like a multi-billion-dollar industry, and most of the people that contribute to that multi-billion dollars are the same people over and over and over and over again. And now I guess with Ozempic, most people, or a lot of people, are going that route, which to me is insane. But so rather than do Ozempic, I am going to go with burdock root and see if I, in fact, can't lose the same amount of weight. Maybe not as quick as those of you who are cheating, or what I call cheating with Ozempic, but I'll get the same result. Might take me a little bit longer, but you know what they say, slow and steady. And if you want to join me on this journey, if you want to lose 10 pounds, 20 pounds, whatever, tell me. I read the emails. Those emails go right to me. They don't go to anybody on my staff. The ones that are at the email address that I'm going to leave here, or that I'm going to put on the screen right now. you'll see that in a moment. And yeah, if you email me and say, hey, I want to lose 20 pounds by the NMA with you or whatever, by all means, please join me. There's power in numbers. There is. Anybody will tell you that. So, we can encourage each other, and it doesn't matter if it's one or 100 of you. I'm more than happy to share my travels down the weight loss road, if you will, with you, and hopefully we come out of it the other end thinner and better off for it. So, anyways, we talked about that. And again, I talked about the Medicare surcharges, the IRMAA surcharges, and we finished it up with the wild, what I call time warps of our past. Okay. So before I let you go, mark your calendars because our next episode of Life After 55 is going to be on Tuesday, April 14th, the day before tax day. And again, as a bookkeeper and a tax prep guy, I'm telling you, make sure you got your taxes done and wrapped up by then. Otherwise, you're going to have a last minute scramble that's going to be hectic. A lot of bookkeepers, CPAs, and tax people are all jammed up at that time. So, anyways, just a quick reminder. But yeah, our next episode is going to be on April 14th at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and we have some big goals for the channel, and I need your help to get there. Please follow us on X and our Life After 55 Facebook page for live updates and behind-the-scenes content. The Facebook challenge that we have is once we hit 100 followers on Facebook, we can start streaming the show directly there as well. And that's kind of what we're shooting for. We don't want to just shoot here on YouTube. We want to do YouTube and Facebook because there are a lot of people who have told us, they just aren't into coming over here to YouTube, and for whatever reason, they just as soon watch this over on Facebook if it was there. So if you're enjoying the content, please head over and give that page a follow. And all you got to do is look up, search on Facebook for Life After 55, and you see the logo, you see our page there. And please follow so we can grow that community. We want to hear from you, each and every one of you. If you have questions about what your Medicare brackets are, a health topic you're curious about, or a suggestion for a topic on the show, you can email us at lifeafter55channel@gmail.com. And again, that email goes directly to me. So if you email me, whether it's personal or not, I will see it there. Nobody else will see it. And your suggestions are what drive this show. Okay? So remember, please help us on Facebook with, joining that page. Give us a like here, please. Comment, interact with all of that helps the algorithm and helps somebody this might be helpful to. Even if it wasn't helpful to you, you could be helping somebody else by your comment, by just engaging with this content. So please do us that favor and give us that courtesy of engaging with the content if you watched any of it. I appreciate those of you who did watch it. I appreciate you taking the time to spend with us. I know your time is important, and I really, really do thank you for spending it here with me. Okay? I'm Roy. This has been Life After 55, Health, Wealth, and Headlines. I wish each of you to stay healthy, stay wealthy, and I will see you all again, Lord willing, on April 14th. Good night. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it may be while you're watching this replay. Bye.